everyone has at least one amazing, untold story that has never been told, that cries to be told. And if it's never written down, never told, never related in some way, no one will ever hear it, because it only belongs to that person's experience. And I don't care if they're not Faulkner, if they're not Steinbeck. These are great writers, but they're never going to be able to write that person's story because no one knows it better than that person. If they have the guts, the courage to turn that mirror not out, but turn it inward. And if that person doesn't write it, it's gone. It'll just disappear.
Someone fighting for a place to stand, decent job or a helping hand, forever someone struggling to be free. Look in their eyes, Mom, you'll see me. The highway is alive tonight. Nobody's kidding nobody about where it goes. Sitting down here at the campfire light.
One of the most powerful stories in American literature is that of the Joad family's journey of struggle from Oklahoma to California. Dreaming of a better life during the Dust Bowl years of the Great Depression, the 13 of them pile into one car and head west on 66 towards the Promised Land, refusing to give up hope. To celebrate the 75th anniversary of John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, a group of artists set out on a 10-day journey across the 1,500-mile route of the Joads, recording over 70 oral histories along the way.
My first 10 years of life, I would say, The Grapes of Wrath was being written from Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, Arizona, into California.
The depression and all the dirt storms is as bad as you can get. I cannot convince you how bad it was.
You cannot compare what we call the Great Recession to the Great Depression. There was absolutely no money at that time. There was no money in circulation.
We're in the money, I say we're in the money. We got a lot of what it takes to get along. And when we see the landlord, we can look that guy right in the eye. We're in the money.
There were no retirement plans. There was no Social Security. There were no food kitchens then. There were no shelters. There were soup lines. And when you say soup lines, they were actually soup lines with a bowl of soup. And proud men stood, took a bowl of soup.
You learned to work as a child, and you knew that it was hard to earn much money. So once a depression child, you're sort of always a depression child.
One morning, we were at the table, and one of my brothers come in. You got to come outside and see this. Out to the west, there's a cool wall of dirt coming.
Came in from the north up here, just big black rolling clouds, just rolling in. I mean, just roll, roll, roll. So that's just the way it was.
The dirt came, it got in the cooking, it got in the ironing, it got in the bed covers. You lived in the dirt, you ate it, breathed it, and all of that. Some people, that really affected their lungs, that they'd get what's called dust pneumonia, build up a dirt and stuff in the lungs. They'd have to physically open it up, make a hole here open and drain the things.
It's harder for people when you don't have any rain. You got to have water to keep going. That's what it boils down to. No water, no grow, nothing to eat.
We kept planting, and crops came until 1932. In 1933, it didn't rain. 1934, it didn't rain. So we just had to abandon it all along. Life went on, picked cotton every fall, and which is Some people these days think that's a mark of shame. It's not, it's just work. You got paid for working. What's the big deal?
My wife remembers when Roosevelt came here to Elwood Park, and when Roosevelt came here to speak.
And he went to the town center to give a talk. A black cloud rolled in, and it started to rain. And it rained 6 inches, and it hadn't rained in 6 years. And Will Rogers later said that only 2 people could make it rain: God and Roosevelt.
Roosevelt started the WPA projects. Well, there was work.
My most immediate concern is in carrying out the purposes of the great work program just enacted by the Congress. Its first objective is to put men and women now on the relief rolls to work.
They built schools and bridges and just
Did anything
that had to do
to
with the public.
provide public jobs.
And that helped those men that had been, farmers and had crop losses.
But they had to send 80% of their salary back home to their families.
We're blessed. And our society has built on their hardships.
Steinbeck told it like it was, really. People that were there and lived through it, yes, that was the way it was.
As we headed out west, the land along Route 66 rolled past our windows with vast skies and open grassy plains. Every place was so different, so unique, and yet it all had this common theme running through it of this road, tying the land together with a relentless drive towards another life, much like the stories that were being told to us along the way.
I was dancing with my darling to the Tennessee waltz when an old friend I happened to see.
But there's something to be said about this land. Steinbeck almost never left Salinas during the first half of his life, so he understood the people, understood their relationship to the land, because he understood the land too. He understood the soil, could feel it underneath the soles of his feet. And I think that giving ourselves an opportunity to experience it, even on such a superficial level, opens a small portal to how they relate to their land.
People here have to be pretty tough because the land's pretty tough. I mean, nobody in their right mind, if you've seen other parts of the United States, would come out here if they'd seen it ahead of time. They would all stayed back east of the Alleghenies because there's nothing out here. Now, nowadays we have plenty out here because we were able to dig it out, but it wasn't done by us. It was done by people that persevered and stuck around and got the job done.
Most people's stories were similar to our own life experiences. There were some, though, who had experienced unplanned for events in their lives that they just couldn't have seen coming, underlining the importance of a society that helps each other.
My early life in Amarillo as a kid, it was basic. We were just a normal family with sports and, day-to-day life. Nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, it was just that normal Norman Rockwell painting type thing. But being a single parent and going back to school, it's mainly just we're getting by until I graduate. So that's what we do. And my son, Ian, he turned 11 Saturday. I'm still getting used to 11. Yeah. And when he was 5 years old, he coded on the floor right there at daycare. So no signs, no nothing, he coded. When daycare called me to pick him up, I couldn't understand the lady. I just assumed he got in a little argument with another kid. So I just went to daycare with no notion. I mean, when I walked into daycare, he's on the floor. They're working on him. There's nothing I can do for him. They rushed him to the hospital. We followed. We were told that he had cancer. So all within a 24-hour period, life's easy, just rolling along normal, and bam, everything's changed. He spent, 27 days in the PD ICU, half of that on a ventilator. He went from 50 pounds to 19 pounds, and all that just in a sudden blink of an eye, switched between one day to the next. So they showed me the pictures on the screen. His actual cancer was a tumor in his chest, so big that it pushed his esophagus up and cut off his air. And after about 3 days, they get you good and calmed down, and maybe where you can halfway think and come in and tell you that a treatment program for T-cell lymphoma on a boy is 3.5 years. Just everything starts coming into your mind. It was, well, 3.5 years. Wow, well, is he going to live? Is he going to die? You just don't know. It's just a rush of just a hard hit. I mean, I went into the bathroom and just cried and asked why and banged my head on the wall, etc. Yesterday, we were playing football and we were doing this, and today we're in a hospital and in an ICU unit. He's on a ventilator. Can't even talk to him. Can't even say, how do you feel? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to explain without going through it. You're just numb. You just get through it, and try to move on. Pretty devastating events. Well, financially, it breaks you down to the core. For 1 year of cancer treatments, medicines during the main period is like $600,000+ in a year. Well, I don't know a rich person that can afford that, much less us. There's help, small amounts. There's so many kids out there. There's so many people, that they need that small amount of help just to get through. Okay, because someone will say, well, why didn't you go out and just grab you a job? Well, when you go to the doctor 3 times a week, and then if he gets a fever, you're in for 72 hours. Most employers don't say, oh, just go ahead and take a week off and we'll see you when you get a chance to get here. That just didn't happen. It makes you appreciate every penny in the jar. It makes you appreciate every dollar you come up with, The hardest road as a single parent, trying to just get through that first year and a half where the hospital's your life. That's your job. Your child is your job. That has to come first. I don't have enough gas to get there. That people don't get that. He went through things that they would have to tie me down and beat me to do to me at that hospital. Those nurses, and they put needles in him and did things to him you wouldn't do on a lab animals most of the time. Not Ian. He stood up and said, I'm good. Just take care of it. Get me out of here. So, I mean, if that's not inspiring, come on. You have to go, wow. If he can do that at 6 or 8, what am I doing at my age going, oh gosh, I can't get through this English paper, or I just can't find time to go to the store. When? What excuse will you have for not doing something? So it's pure inspiration. We can stand a high and preach it and yell it from the mountaintops. We are 1 year and 4 months clear and clean. I was putting in about 1/1000th of an effort that he was for life. And it widens your eyes, it opens your eyes. And I looked at him and just knew with a little effort, I could take myself back to school and better myself. And if I wasn't bettering myself, then I wasn't doing him a service for everything he's done. Making my life better makes his life better. So going back to school was, just the way to do it. You need to go to college. You've got to graduate, or you can't be there if your family hits need like mine did. It's going to be a long, hard fall. And I can tell you it's going to be. I'm a witness. The government. I would never wish a sick child or any sick thing on anybody, but I believe if half a Senate or half a House would have gone through what we went through daily, just once, one 24-hour period, I believe their priorities would be less selfish and in a lot of better places. It has to be done. There can be support for people in any situation. It has to be there. You can't just. This is not nature. This is not the weakest just should die and the strongest should move on. This is not the way it is. We are human beings. We have hearts, we have souls, we have minds. And we should be able to think of a way to support people. I know there's fraud. I know there's theft. I know there's people out there that will abuse, okay? But there are people that truly need help, and if we just forgo helping people, then we've gone back to the Stone Ages, and we might as well turn it all off. And it's just I don't want to live in a place like that. Do you?
We came across one story that showed how suffering can really have a domino effect.
My dad would always say, I hate the Okies, Los Oklahomas. He hated them. And I didn't know why. But I read this book. Wow. Cool book. Well, come to find out, here comes somebody in a jalopy, right? They were coming from the Dust Bowl, right? It was right here. I had no clue. Finally, one day he told me. He did tell me why. He basically said, when that Okie showed up, because his jalopy needed gas or needed a tire or needed something, guess who got let go? We went without food because this person got the job, got my job, so they could continue on to go to California. And here I am reading the book, but had no idea. They're survivors, that's the good thing. That's one thing you have to remember, is that everybody was surviving, whether it was the Oklahomas or the Okies, whether it was the Mexican family that had to go home without food that day or that week or that month. They all were survivors. You got to look at it that way.
Up on a farm, and we raised a lot of our own food, like all our own vegetables and fruit and stuff, and meat, and it was mostly just lots of hard work. Well, I got kicked out of the house a couple years ago. My destiny was to marry a guy Dad picked out and serve him for the rest of my life, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to learn things. I was basically on the streets from before light till long after dark, looking for a job and trying to survive the hunger. On the super foggy days, it was like super cold, and I would go to the library and just look at all the books and stuff, and I'd try to read, but my mind was like, I have to get a place to live, I have to get a job, so I couldn't stay there very long. It was very depressing. I sometimes walk 15, 20 miles in a day applying at every single store and restaurant I came across. Basically lived off of samples and in stores. I got 2 job interviews, but everybody's hiring, and I had no previous experience except for farm and construction, so they weren't gonna hire just this person off the streets, who didn't really have an address or anything. I honestly do not know what kept me going, but possibly, because I'm a dreamer. I dream things in my mind, like what I want for my future and stuff, and I'm going to design my own home. I love architecture, and I love designing houses, and I'm going to design my own house. Home means a place where I feel comfortable, a place that I can hang pictures on the wall, and I have never felt at home yet. So I will get to know that feeling someday. I started school a year and a half ago because I've wanted to learn stuff. And so when I came out here, I was too afraid to try because I thought I didn't know anything. I had never gone to school. I'd never really learned anything, so I was afraid I wasn't smart enough to. I don't know, a lot of the harshness of the way I grew up probably beat the strength into me, but maybe it's because I want to like prove them wrong and get in a really good education from an Ivy League school and show them that I am smart enough to. I kind of escape into dream world when things get tough, like dreaming about my future and like what a perfect life would be. I'm going to be an inventor after college. Well, one of my main goals and dreams is to put Microsoft out of business, and I have several ideas. I want to like free up technology, and I'm going to MIT. I'm not going to take no for an answer.
Oh, why don't you work like other men do? How the hell can I work when the skies are so blue? Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a handout and revive us again. Oh, I love my boss. My boss loves me. That's why I am so hungry. Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a handout and revive us again. Oh, why don't you save all the money you earn? Well, if I didn't eat, I'd have money to burn. Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a handout and revive us again.
The interesting thing, I think, about that whole period was that people still had a spirit. They knew things were going to get better. Our family motto was poor, nay in spirit. And I think that the Jode family had some of that spirit.
On the bread line, hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a handout and revive us again.
Some people's lives had been forever changed by the deep, deep scars inflicted on them by others and by themselves, leaving them stranded in their own private dust bowls.
I had a pretty normal childhood. My father was a store owner, and my mother does the same thing I do. She's a legal assistant. Pretty much an overachiever. I had to make straight A's or I wasn't happy. But my mom killed herself when I was 12. And so I dropped out of school, started getting into really bad drugs and running away and things like that. Then got with somebody at 13 and was beaten probably for 3 years from this person. And eventually he went to jail and I got my GED. As life went on, my father ended up getting killed at his convenience store. Somebody came into his store the day that they started selling lottery tickets in Texas and shot him for the lottery tickets. And so he died, and 6 months later I found out I had third-stage breast cancer. And so I had chemo and radiation and the hair falling out and all that stuff, and when I was 23. So that naturally made me do some more drugs and get in trouble. And then at 26, I had my first brush with the law and got 2 charges on me. And I was married to a cop. So naturally, he couldn't stay married to me, somebody that's breaking the law actively, you know. Yeah. And it's amazing how methamphetamine can cause you just to totally be a person you're not, you know. I actually have 12 felony charges on me. And but I did 5 years in prison. My brother was 28 years old, and he was out here doing drugs while I was in prison, and he ended up dying. So anyway, that was my whole family. They died at 32, 42, and 28. And I had 2 little boys right before I went to prison, and I don't have them anymore. I had to give up my rights after being in jail. It was the best thing for them. For the first time in my life, I was caring about what happened to them instead of me, you know. Sorry. Okay. I love them, the guys. They're like 11 months apart. And actually next weekend I'm going to see them. And they know all about what's happened, and they have a stepmother. And she's real active in their life. And actually, after my brother died, I became so bitter there because of all that stuff I just didn't understand. But I finally, something changed my mind in there. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to do some stuff. And I went to life skills classes, and I didn't know anything about being a lady, being about mother, you know. I had nobody helping me with that. So I got out, and I came here to Amarillo College, and I graduated with a 3.96. And I got all of my trust back with people, and I'm just not the same girl, you know. Everybody before was so scared of me. They didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. And now everybody trusts me, you know, so miracles can happen, you know. But I love my job now. I actually work for a criminal lawyer. It contributes to my life because it makes me feel worthy when a lot of times I could not, you know. So even now, you know, from losing my mom, I always have this issue where I don't feel good enough for stuff, you know, and I don't feel good enough for people. I didn't have a place to go. I didn't have family to go to. And so somebody trusted that I was going to do right, and they opened their home. They fed me, and they clothed me, and they took care of me. And then people from the church offered to let me clean their houses. These people here rallied around me to do well, and they're the reason why I succeeded. So those are people I turn to in hard times. And I'll do the same thing for anybody that needs it. If they hadn't helped me here, I'd have been dead for sure, I feel like. And I wouldn't have got my degree. There's just no telling. When the lady that's over that Sunday school group called me that night, and she said, Lisa, do you have a car? And I said, no. And she said, well, you do now. And it wasn't just a car. It was a 2004 Lexus SUV. And I don't say that because God drops cars out of the sky. I'm just saying that that's big, you know. If somebody like me can make it, you can make it. You don't have to go back, you know. You alone can do it, but you can't do it alone. And I think that sums up my life. I hope y'all can encourage people or do something with all this information, you know.
We had heard dozens and dozens of stories by the time we got ourselves to California. People told us they wanted to make a difference, that they wanted to contribute, to move forward. But most of all, they wanted to be heard.
My name is Jorge Guillen. I'm born in Bakersfield. Parents are from Michoacan, and I lived in Lamont, Auburn Wheat Patch area my whole life. I'm an artist, poet, a couple classes away from graduating with the BA in U.S. History from Cal State. I get that natural high that I get when doing poetry, when doing spoken word, when doing arte, when doing murals. I'm a product of amnesty. In '86, when they were granted amnesty, I was allowed to stay. I mean, never answering the phone or being afraid that my parents were going to come back or whatnot because of La Migra. You know, that was a constant thing growing up as a little one. Not understanding what the migra was, but just that the migra would take them away. My parents, well, my dad up until recently and my mom, they're farm laborers. They pick uvas for Sunview Vineyards. We were picking onions just outside of Lamont. And I got sick, got a fever. I guess I was working too hard. Like, you don't know, 3 years old, you don't know. I remember 3rd and 4th grade, not being able to pick, but we would set out the paper for the raisins, because raisins are literally dried by the sun. I would put clods of dirt on each 4 of the corners of the paper and do the whole surco. So all my parents had to do was throw the grapes directly on top of the paper. I used to not like it. You're 4th grade, you know? You're 4th grade, and you're going to the 4th grade year. Kids are like, oh, I can't wait this summer. I'm like, nah, chale's on summer, man. Like, I'm gonna go to the fields. Some kids, not all kids had to do it. This is now like the old Sunset Camp. The original Sunset Camp, that was torn down. There wasn't the need to preserve anything. And, you know, you have these people who are in charge and have absolutely no connection to the decisions being made that affect other people. Those people have no idea what's going on here. So, I mean, it's a trip. It's sad in that sense, that it's never gonna go back, and you can't ever go back, you know, but since there's nobody saying anything, there's nobody out there being the voice for these, I mean, I guess for the camp, but I mean, it's not just Okies, you know, it's not just people from Texas, you know, there's a whole continuing thing. I mean, this is the Grapes of Wrath. This right here is the Grapes of Wrath. This is everything that everybody was talking about, every season the movie. This is Tom Joad. This is everything that is in the books, and it's a continuing thing, and it has to be preserved. The whole thing is that what's in the book is still happening right now, and there's new migrants, but since nobody's saying anything, everything got destroyed. All these empty fields used to be houses. It's not a campo, it's not a campito no more. It's a prison. I see it as a prison because I've seen what they've done, you know, and there's absolutely no connection to anything. And the only reason all this is happening is because nobody's saying anything. In that scene where he says, I'm gonna be in that little kid's laughter when they're getting happy because they know food's about to get served to them because they're hungry. You know, I'm gonna be in, whenever there's a cop beating down a guy, I'm gonna be him. It's just the realization that you have to be the voice. It can't be always somebody else. Everybody always complains, you know, how come they don't do this? How come they don't do that? Well, all that, it has to be you. If you don't take action and do it yourself, I mean, we're all Tom Joad. We all have to go out there and we all have to fight. And if everybody had that state of mind, as opposed to being whatever denomination of Republican or Democrat or Green Party, Libertarian, none of that shit matters. If we were all like more like Tom Joad, then this whole world would run a lot more simpler because people would just have some fucking common sense. If we never use our voices, who's gonna hear us? You know, you have to use your voice and you have to speak up. You know, doesn't matter if you're a little kid in some little town in Iowa, you know, a little Chicanito in Brooklyn, you know, a little African kid in Wyoming, little white boy in Florida. You know, we're all Tom Joad. Tom Joad isn't dead, you know, Tom Joad's never gonna die. Tom Joad's always gonna exist. Walking down the streets of Sunset Camp, I can't help but dream of you. I can't help but dream that I'm alive. I can't help myself, so I dream.
Yeah, we'll make it, baby.
Walking down the streets of Sunset Camp, where the houses lay vacant, when campesinos could not make it back to the island of California, to get up at 4:30 in the morning, to be ready at 5:30, to be working at 6 in the morning, picking the fruit of the valle under the San Joaquin sun. I'm walking down the streets of Sunset Camp, dreaming of you, realizing I'm alive, realizing I'm right here, realizing I still miss you.
Look at us now, we're all dancing around, and we'll make it, baby, you will see. The day's here now where we're saying our vows, and we made it, baby, you and me.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching song. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damp. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day